Coming up on today's edition of the Danny Mac podcast, Herm Edwards, the fiery former head coach and a former colleague very briefly at ESPN, is going to join me. He's going to talk about what Caleb Williams needs most. If you like wagering on college basketball, on pro basketball, on anything on which you can get a wager, you should check us out at BetRivers. If you haven't installed the app already, what are you waiting for? Find out how you can profit on all of your wisdom. Don't just have that sitting in your gray matter and keep it to yourself. Prosper. Wager at BetRivers.
You're now watching the Danny Mac podcast on the BetRivers Network.
Even though all has been quiet around Hallis Hall, we are buzzing about what the Bears may do. So let's talk about the offseason and around the NFL with a guy I always enjoyed talking with when it comes to the greatest game ever invented. Former NFL head coach Herm Edwards is with me today. We broadcast to win the damn broadcast. Herm, thanks for the time, man. How are you?
Thank you, my friend.
We got a big surprise in the offseason. The Bears came up with $13 million a year for Ben Johnson, and all of a sudden life is rosy again in the Windy City. Were you surprised they got their man at that price?
No, and I think for Coach, I think he's very familiar when you think about this with the division, and that's always a help when you actually become a head coach or even a coordinator, but more important, a head coach. When you understand your division and at the place you have been, you built your team to win in that division. So he gets it, he understands it, he knows what it's going to take to win games in this division, the NFC North, as we talk about. Probably the best division last year as far as wins and losses now. Not so much in the playoffs for some reason, right? In the playoffs, it's like, really? I mean, think about Detroit. I mean, Detroit was the hottest team in football. They couldn't do anything wrong. A rookie quarterback in Washington going to Detroit and basically blow them out of their own stadium.
Yeah, it was an amazing postseason. It was shocking, really, and disappointing. Even from a Chicago fan standpoint, you want to think that you're at the bottom because everybody above you is so good, and then they all go down in round one. What do you see happening in Minnesota with Sam Darnold, with J.J. McCarthy waiting in the wings? How's that going to shake out?
That's going to be interesting because I think the question they have to ask themselves is what Sam Darnold are they going to get if he comes back? The guy that played in the regular season or the guy that played in his first playoff game and really kind of not so good, right? And they have this young quarterback sitting there. Are they ready to move on? Do they want to pay Sam Darnold all that money after the way he played in the playoffs? I mean, that's the question you got to ask yourself. Say, we're a pretty good football team. And quarterback, he looked like the Sam Darnold of 8 years ago, right? And kind of like what happened to Kirk Cousins. He hit a bad stretch. He happened to hit a bad stretch in the playoffs. It was like, man, he's really not playing well. First playoff game, I get it. It's going to be interesting to see how this team deals with that situation they have at the quarterback.
Let's talk a little bit about the Super Bowl. Super Bowl 59 certainly did not live up to expectations. I considered playing the game to go to overtime. I thought they were so evenly matched, and it was a blowout. All everybody was talking about the next day was the halftime show, whether Tom Brady deserves all that money from Fox. And they were talking about stained legacies, too. And, you know, Coach, pushing myself away from doing sports yap every day for 4 hours over the years, I've noticed a few things. I sure hope I didn't sound like some of these guys do it. Stained legacies for Mahomes and Andy Reid. What the F are you talking about? These are two of the greatest of all time, whatever happens the rest of their careers, correct?
Correct. And that's what's so unique now about the format we have in sports. Everyone has a voice. And we know to get the phone ringing, to get the conversation going, a statement like that, you're going to have a debate. People are going to debate, and say, well, it's amazing to me, how difficult it is just to win a Super Bowl. No less get into 5 of them?
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, enough already. They act like this is like, oh, it's your birthright. No, it's very difficult. And so I just think that I laugh when conversations like that take place.
Yeah, even getting there, and it's something that's so easy for fan bases to forget. And I published a book this past fall about 40 years of covering the Bears, and that '85 group against which you competed has had a long-standing, raging debate over why only one. And they get it caught up in it themselves, forgetting they were competing against Walsh, Montana, and Lott in San Francisco, LT and Bill Walsh, and that O line with the Giants and the
Yeah,
Skins with three
yeah.
different quarterbacks under Gibbs in 10 years. Only one team wins it, and that team was up against an NFC force majeure, man.
No, you're right. And sometimes I always tell, fans and just people in general, like sometimes, and players know this too, sometimes you're in the wrong era. You get in the wrong era and you get one of those teams that's rolling. Like you can go back late 70s, early 70s. It was all about the Pittsburgh Steelers. And they were like, oh boy, every time you turn around, they're going to the Super Bowl and winning, and they were then Dallas kind of had a run, right? You see these runs of 3 or 4 years, obviously. Now, Andy and Kansas City have had a run. We know Captain America, Tom Brady, who did the Super Bowl, they had a run. And all of a sudden, you look at your career and say you played like, I don't know, 10 years, let's say, and you can say, you know what? We were in the AFC side of it, and they had Captain America. Well, he went to a bunch of them. That didn't mean I wasn't a good player or we wasn't a good team. It's just that was the team.
Herm, it doesn't matter much now. The award has been given, and it really isn't an award that I spend much time thinking about. But the debate for MVP in December and January was Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson. If either of those guys did more for their team than Saquon Barkley did for the Eagles, I would love to hear that explanation. And I didn't hear anybody building a case for Saquon.
Well, and I think this is the reason why. Saquon Barkley went to a team, a very good team, one of the best offensive lines, one of the best defensive lines, have quarterback in place, outstanding defense. He rushes for 2,000, which is incredible. When you look at Josh Allen, okay, you close your eyes and you go to Buffalo Bills, Josh Allen. You go, who else is on his team? How many Pro Bowlers does he have? The guard. Him and the guard.
Yeah.
Really? He did all this? So to me, that's the MVP. A guy that can take his team and put them on his back. Look, Saquon was fabulous, but they got his number one defense in the National Football League. They got one of the best offensive lines in the National Football League. We saw what they did in the Super Bowl. They could rush four guys and get to the quarterback. So as good as Saquon was, now he got him over the hump, I believe. He helped the quarterback get better. But at the end, Josh Allen, in my opinion, what he did for the Buffalo Bills, oh boy.
Yeah. Yeah, I certainly wouldn't make the argument against Josh Allen. You're right. I mean, they don't have a ton of stars around him by any stretch. I'm biased because I love the position, and I think the position has become, unfortunately, a fungible one. And I use the word oppressed when I describe running backs because, in their profession, I'm not losing perspective on history, but in their profession, they are oppressed. And there's nothing they can do about it. Their CBA is a long way off from getting a new one.
Yeah, and you're right. And I think if you're a Chicago Bear fan, I mean, obviously, one of the best running backs to ever played for Chicago. That was Walter Payton. We know that. I will say this. I'm looking at the other way now. I think actually the runner is going to come back because of this. In today's world of football, everyone plays with a light box. Your linebackers now are lighter. Why? They got to cover, right? They got to match up with the tight end. They got to be able to run and play in space because the ball's in the air so much. So now all of a sudden, the big, thick, run-stopping linebackers, they're not a void. You don't want them guys anymore. So those guys can't play. They play first down and they got to get them out of the game. So now people are playing with 5 DBs. Some people play with 6 on first down, light box. So when you get a light box, you say, well, wait a minute, there's a 210-pound linebacker sitting in there. Why don't we just run the ball at that guy? He can't stop the run.
Yeah.
So the running game becomes more important to me now in today's world with the way you build your defenses, because you're building your defense to do what? Stop the pass. The two things I do know when I watch football: nobody can cover the tight end. It's a joke. Nobody covers the tight end. They just can't cover the guy, right? And nobody really, unless you put 9 guys in the box, can stop the run. I mean, he just sit there. And you go, hey, man, run it. We can make 5 yards every time.
So unlock help for defensive coordinators. How are you going to, more of a jam, or are they getting too many free releases?
Yeah, it's just, because, they take the tight end and put him out of the, if you take him outside the core, then you sit there with a guy on him. It's a matchup problem. Well, linebacker, can he cover him? Strong safety ain't big enough. Well, how do we do this, right? He almost goes unannounced, the tight end. It's like, we're worried about the receivers. We got to roll the coverage over here. We got to double this guy. We don't worry about the tight end. The tight ends are making a great comeback in today's world. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like they're always open in the middle of the field. I haven't seen no one cover a tight end yet.
Yeah, you're right. And sometimes even when they do, if you're as good as Travis Kelce, and some of them, you catch the ball with guys hanging on you anyway. I want to get to to our local heroes, the Bears, with Ben Johnson stepping up in pay grade and now having to be the so-called CEO. It's going to take a lot of time away from his usual routine. What concerns would you have for a former offensive coordinator, play caller, and he is going to continue to call plays, now having to run the entire show while serving as quarterback whisperer to Caleb Williams?
Well, he's got to allocate his time, because you can't get caught on one side of the ball when you're the head coach and you're going to call plays. You got to know what the defensive room is doing. You got to know what special teams is doing. You got to take time and sit in those meetings. And you also got to take time to sit in there with the players so they see you. They don't want to just see you on the field, or when you make the announcement in the morning, this is what the schedule is, and you leave and everyone leaves and you're sitting there with the offense and they never see you till you get on the field and you're calling them up at the end of the practice. No. You actually got to go in their meetings. I did that as a head coach. I said, look, I don't want to call defenses. I want to be everywhere. I want to be in all the rooms. First room I would sit in every morning is the quarterback room. I sit in there with the quarterbacks, with the coordinator of the quarterbacks. Okay, let me figure out what these guys are doing. Hear the conversation. They saw me in the room. Then I'd go, okay, I'm going to go to the receiver room now. I knew what the defense was doing. And I'd show up on the defensive side too. But you got to spread, you have to spread yourself so all the players feel like coach is everywhere. He's coaching all of us. And then you got to coach your coaches. You're going to give the message to your coaches. They go to these meeting rooms. Well, you can't be in all the meeting rooms. Mm-hmm. It's impossible. So how do you allocate your time? And I think he'll understand that. It's going to be important. To sit in the DB room one day. Just sitting in the DB room. And the DBs look and say, hey, coach is in here. Why he in here? Right? You're listening. Right? And you make comments on things, on tape. Say, hey, why you ran this route? Because of this coverage right here. So you're helping teach it. You're teaching everybody.
Something you said to me in a conversation a while back resonated with me on the topic of young head coaches, any head coach actually, but especially a guy learning it for the first time. And that is, make sure you're on the same page with your quarterback when you stand on that podium. And that was a huge problem here in town last year with Eberflus, Williams, guys on the defense. Nobody was on the same page. And players talked about the absence of leadership. They had 8 damn captains. If you can't find a couple leaders among 8 of them, maybe there isn't a leader in the entire building. But that certainly is something I hope Ben Johnson incorporates, because there's nothing worse than the quarterback saying something opposite the head coach, whether it's the next day or 10 minutes after the game.
Correct. And you have to be on the same page with the quarterback. And, I made it my business when the game was over. Before I got to that locker room, I'm walking with the quarterback. And I'm telling him, hey, man, this is where I'm going. Win, lose, or draw. This is what I'm going to say. I'm going to talk about it this way. We good? Coach, we're good. I didn't put words in his mouth, but we needed to be on the same page. Because the two people that are going to get looked at, head coach, quarterback. End of the day. You're going to get the questions, right? Regardless of, even the quarterback don't play defense, you're going to get the questions. And so you got to be on the same page of, hey, answers aren't, the answers are in the ballpark. They kind of match up, right? And so this is a head coach, you got to protect the quarterback. Always protect the quarterback.
Yeah.
No matter how bad it looked, how bad it was, I'm protecting this guy. He's the guy. I got to protect him.
3 or 4 questions about the Bears quickly if time allows. And let's start with the quarterback. The rumor mill churning. And I saw yesterday, I don't know where it emanated from, who knows, but people are talking about the prospect of the Bears making a deal for Aaron Rodgers to play backup to Caleb Williams. The floor is yours, Coach.
I don't think that's needed. I think Coach will do a great job with Caleb Williams. And I heard a little bit from his press conference yesterday when he talked about how he's going to build the offense around his quarterback. And when he said that, he said the system's the quarterback. He said whatever he can do, that's what we're going to do on offense. You can't say it any plainer than that. Correct statement, the right path. He's different than Jared Goff. Different guy. Okay, he knows that. I got a more athletic guy probably. Okay, and you say, I got to build it around him. I got to sit there with him and ask him, okay, what do you like? What do you don't like? It's got to be built around the guy. And we go get the other pieces, but we're going to build it around what he wants to do. So that's the right path to go. So I think they're in good shape there.
Offensive lineman at 10 if they keep it, right? Anywhere else, unless it's a great edge rusher who you didn't think would fall because they need help there as well. Yeah,
because you got to protect the guy. I mean, maybe one of the best quarterbacks playing in the game today is Patrick Mahomes. Did you see how he fared in the Super Bowl? Couldn't protect him. He rushed 4 guys. He had no chance. He had no chance. And he's won Super Bowls. So you want to talk about your young quarterback? Look at Patrick Mahomes, what happened to him in the Super Bowl. He looked like a rookie quarterback.
Yeah. Yeah, he did. I mean, it was something, and the Bears could have had one of those guys, Jalen Carter, but they passed. Okay, they didn't get there very often with Montez Sweat last year. Now, I liked the trade when they made it. They only gave up a second-round pick for a 27-year-old man at the time. He wasn't healthy all of last year, but he only had 5.5 sacks and 12 quarterback hits, stunningly low for a guy who played in 16 of the 17 games. I can't justify trading for a Micah Parsons or a player like Myles Garrett, who may be the best player in the NFL. I love him, but you're overcommitted to pass rushers unless you find out what you're going to do with the salary of Montez Sweat. I don't think they can be that disproportionately swung on defensive contracts. Do you?
Yeah, it's very difficult, especially when you think about a guy that you mentioned. Health is very important for these guys, and when the guy's not healthy, that's always a concern. Last time I checked, you pay them to play all the games. You don't. They're not part-time players now. They got to play all the games. That's kind of important. And when they can't do that, that becomes a concern, right? It becomes like, that's not good. And so, yeah, you got to hope that was one. Look, here's an example. Saquon Barkley, same thing. When he was with the Giants, he was nicked up some. Didn't play a lot. Well, he goes to Philadelphia. That guy ain't missed a snap.
Yeah.
It's just amazing sometimes. It's just so, okay, what happened, right? They got different trainers. I don't know about the trainer. Trainers are all good. The attitude kind of changed a little bit. Now you get a new coach, get a new coordinator. Attitudes kind of changed a little bit. Okay, right? I always tell this. You always set the players up for success. How do I do that? How am I able to do that? Do I got to take a little bit more off his plate? Is he only maybe plays 30 snaps rather than 50 to keep him healthy? And on certain downs and situations, I get him out. And all of a sudden, I'm kind of catering a little bit to him, and he feels like I'm a specialist, and I feel good about myself. They're taking care of me, and all of a sudden, he don't get hurt anymore. That's kind of interesting. Why is that? Never know.
Herm, always a pleasure catching up with you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your off season there in sunny California. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, my friend.
Herm Edwards, one of the greatest analysts. When you can catch him doing it on ESPN or wherever he's broadcasting, he joined ESPN shortly before they whacked me, so our circles did not intersect for very long. Randy Merkin is the producer who gets me all of my A-listers here on the Danny Mac podcast. Sam Michael, the executive producer. Adam Delavit runs the show. And also, we got Alex Pastor and Troy Mocker taking care of business behind the scenes. Thank you so much for listening. Those of you who watched on YouTube, thanks for hanging around as well. I'm Dan McNeil.